Hey everybody, and welcome to the third video in the App from Scratch series on building an Android app in Kotlin. In this video, we're going to talk about Event Bus and integrating it into our existing app. This video was taken from a live stream where I built an entire application from scratch. Make sure you subscribe to get notified of videos on Android, iOS, and game development. So let's get started. Event Bus is one of my favorite ways of using the observer pattern to notify other parts of our application that something has happened. Now, I don't want to connect our to-do manager to our interface and our interface to our to-do manager because that's really that's coupling our application to other objects. And the to-do manager never needs to know anything about the UI. So we use Event Bus. There's other built-in Android methods like live data that if you want to use the live data, that sort of kind of works the same way as this, but more localized, less global, which is kind of nice. But for Event Bus, this is really, really easy to hook up. I'm going to go over to the GitHub account and do this just like I showed to the other one. Implementation, Event Bus 3.2.0. Go over to our Android build for the app module, paste that in, build Gradle, and now we have Event Bus in our application. I love how easy that is. Okay, so we've commented all this out. I will delete this so it's not mucking up the stuff in the Git repository. As I mentioned, when that data gets updated, the interface wants to also get notified that there's new data, right? Because maybe the interface is already updated with the local copies of those to-dos, and then sometime in the future, the web service comes back and all that data is newly populated, but I have no way of updating the interface. So let's create that update here. So Event Bus allows us to subscribe to events that happen. So we say Event Bus. This is a singleton, but we say just get default to get the default Event Bus. What we want to do is we actually want to register this class, main activity, so we're currently in. We want to register for updates. Okay, we just pass in this. We're just saying main activity, it wants to start receiving updates from Event Bus. What events are those? Well, we have to define those in a function. So I'm just going to create a new function here. You can call this function whatever you want. We're just going to call this new to-do items. Again, you can name it whatever you want. The thing that matters is the parameter that you get passed into, and an annotation at the top here. But what I'm going to say is new, actually these are, this is the name. And then the event that I said matters is new to-do items event, which is not defined yet. I just made that name up. But what happens is when that event, when this new to-do items event gets called, then this is going to have all of the variables in it. But I don't really care about the variables, or excuse me, I don't care about the to-do items that the web service just loaded. What I care about is just updating the interface. So just going to get this working. I'm going to log, say new to-do items. All right, so I've already defined this, or I've already written it out, but it's not defined. So I can actually hover over this, pops down a little button, I can say new to-do items. And I can extract this to a separate file. And it'll create a file within the package named with a class name based on that. And just saves me a couple steps. Add that to a Git repository. Now, this is all I need. This is literally all I need is an empty class of new to-do items event. Definitely a mouthful. So I'm going to use this name, and this is basically just a name. But in my to-do manager, when this comes back, when the web services call comes back with our data, parses it, everything is successful. Instead of, after adding it to my list here, I'm going to post the event to Event Bus and let anybody know that wants to subscribe to this event that they now have access to the event. It's very similar to tuning into a radio station or subscribing to a YouTube channel. Whenever I post a new video to YouTube, for instance, if you're subscribed to that channel, you'll get notified that there's a new video. So the same thing. When there's new events, there's new to-dos. If you're subscribed, in this case, main activity is subscribed, then you'll get notified on this. So again, we talk to Event Bus and we say Event Bus, hit default. We're going to post. You can see what the other functions are in here that we want to post, and then it's going to ask for an event of any type. In Kotlin, we have the any type, which literally means any type. So I'm going to paste that new to do in, and we're going to use the constructor empty bracket, or excuse me, empty parentheses to denote an event. What we could do is we could pass in the event body here, which is the array of new to-dos, if we want to pass data with the events. In this case, we don't have to, but we could. If we wanted to, we would just pass that in as a parameter and then make sure in our class that we have a member in there that is an array list and yada yada, but keep it simple. That's all we have to do. Let's see if that gets logged. Go back to our main activity, put a breakpoint here, Control D to, this is another error that I get. It says install successfully finished down here in the bottom left-hand corner, but nothing happens on the emulator. So what do? You just run it again. Okay, so in this one I do have a crash. Okay, subscriber main activity, and that superclass has no public functions for the subscribe. Oh, I mentioned the annotation, but I forgot to actually do it. All right, so here is the function. So as I mentioned, this function name does not matter what you name it. The only thing that matters is this type for the event. So I could actually have multiple functions. Of course, you have to name them slightly differently. Actually, you can overload them, but the type matters because I'm posting this class, and then this class name is going to get called back on here. The other step is I just have to let event bus know that this is a function of interest. And so I can say that this is a subscribe here, and I can make this execute on the main thread. So we can do thread mode async or thread mode main. If we're updating the interface, we want to make sure that it happens on the main thread because you never update the interface on a background thread. And let's see, oh, I have to do thread mode equals that. Okay. Also, on start is where we want to register it. I did it on create because if you want to stop receiving notifications, you can usually do that in the on stop. So we have a breakpoint there. So our app should stop crashing now. Okay, so we got the callback on success. Great. I'm going to step into this line of code. We're going to print out the body. We're going to add it to our to-do list. Now you can see we're going to post this event, new to-do items event. We're going to post it. And then in our main activity, you can see we have a breakpoint here called new to-do items. This is grayed out because it says function to new to-do items is never used. However, let me go back here. Event bus get default post. Nowhere in here am I calling that function directly. But I hit continue and I get stopped here and I said, oh, there's new to-do items. Now I'm not passing the array in this event, but if I was, I could actually look at the event, this event, and examine it and see that there's new to-do items. Okay, so this is in my main activity, but if you remember from last time that I put the array list, or excuse me, the recycle review in a fragment. So that fragment, I don't think I have it opened here, so I'm just going to hit Command O, type in, just going to type in fragment because we only have so many fragments in this class. To do item fragment is what I want. And if you remember, our recycle review has an adapter. We're saving that adapter to do item adapter, and then somewhere in here, here it is, on resume, we notify data set changed. So that's what we want to call to let the recycle review know that we have new data and to update it to UI. If you were to do this like some beginners do, is they'll get a reference to the to-do manager and then they'll say, hey, I care about this, and start passing references of themselves around, or maybe they'll do a get. But I only want to do a get, or I only want to update the interface when I have to. So we do the same exact thing. Make sure I put in my subscribe here, do our thread mode, and then do our main thread mode. Okay, that's our annotation for our function. I'm going to name this something different. Let's just say updated to-dos. Name it whatever you want. But again, I'm going to call this events or event. The only thing that matters is that event name. So new to-do items event. Put in the body. And now instead of having this update every time it resumes, which is quite often, I'm going to copy this out, comment it out, paste it in here. The other thing we need to do is on resume, we're going to do the, well, let's see, I'm just going to put in the on create event bus. Oops, wrong event bus. Event bus. Get default dot register this. So this class now cares about events coming from event bus. And then, of course, in on stop or on pause, we would want to unregister it, just so when it's in the background, we're not receiving notifications. Or you might want to do that as long as you're not updating the UI thread when the activity is in the background. The other thing we want to do is go back to our to-do manager, which I can't find in the tab, so I'm just going to type in manager. There we go, Command O to get that little window. All right, so we've done this. We've posted this event when the web service comes back and says there's new to events, but I also want to do that when you add a new to-do item. So every time you add a new to-do item, we can post these events. Now this might get called too many times, so maybe this is where in your activities you would register and unregister at the appropriate times. Okay, so here we go. We get the call back from the web service. We're going to continue through, actually, let's turn off these breakpoints. We're going to continue off through this. Okay, so here we go. We got our to-dos. Where did this come from? If you go down your stack trace in your debugger, you can see that it's being called. It goes through a bunch of different layers before it gets there, but on response in our web service manager. So that's great. So there it is. Just letting our main activity know that we have new to-dos, but the fragment's not done yet. So the fragment never gets called and updated. But we still get the data because it's already been added before. So what's happened is the data gets added and then our fragment gets created. So that's a problem because if we didn't have this already in there and then it got loaded later, our fragment wouldn't be notified of that. But because we added that event through every time you add a to-do item within a to-do manager, that this will automatically update now. So I'm going to go ahead and add this. Remember, I took this out of our to-do, so I'm going to say new to-do item here. The description, whatever we want to type in, etc. That's fine. Go ahead and save this. I didn't put any breakpoints in there, which I should have done. And if you scroll up, this is kind of lagging a little bit, but if I scroll up here, you can see that the new to-do item here is new. If I click on that, you can see that that was the item that we just added. And if you remember back in our first stream, this is where we were getting notified that I had just added an item. I was refreshing that every time it came back to the fragment. But if we never add an item, we don't want to update it because maybe we have 1,000 different items in that list. And I don't want to have to update that needlessly. I only want to have to update that when there's new data to update. So hopefully that made sense. I'm going to put in a little comment here. So this happens too frequently. Only update when there's new data. When is there new data? Well, again, via event bus, some other object that we have no connection to, no reference to, just broadcasted this out and said, hey, I have new to-do items, so I care about that, and we're going to grab the new to-do items. All right, we're going to stop here for now, and in the next video, we're going to add an embedded database into our application to persist this data. That'll allow us to save data between launches, but most importantly, search that data very quickly. We'll be using ObjectBox to store our to-dos. Thank you so much for making it this far into the series. Give it a like if this has helped you out. Subscribe so you can get notified of additional videos in this series and others in iOS, Android, and game development. Thanks. I'll see you next time.